guys, I have a special announcement to make. I've actually decided to go back into TV news. I'm gonna be working for NBC Connecticut, and I'm really...
For like the 1000th time, this is not NBC, this is my news van.
Okay.
Everyday Astronaut.
Okay everyone, here's the big reveal. Yes, I finally got my awesome interview with Tim Dodd. I'm not going back into TV news, so don't worry. But this is his recently converted van, and I'm so glad that he was able to grace us with an interview. Have you ever made a video before for YouTube?
I've thought about it one day, maybe making a YouTube video.
So here we are, just two YouTubers leaving Starbucks with our mobile offices, our MacBook Pros. I really loved this moment. I felt like I was one of them.
Ryan, Ellie.
Hi,
Ellie,
I
Ryan.
met you once.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
I don't know if you remember me. I think I was on horseback when I met you. Yeah, okay. And then people were like, Elon gave you that horse, and I was like, no.
Oh God, is that around when that was
Humble, do you think that? Yeah.
I don't know why anyone would want a horse as a gift. Did someone misprint house?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I'll buy you a house, not I'll buy you a horse.
Oh, the sound is good. Now this was right before Tim was going to head out to California for the Firefly Aerospace launch attempt, which was scrubbed, but we were so lucky to catch him before he hit the road. In fact, that was the one thing he was waiting on before he actually started his road trip. So thank you, Tim, for giving me some of your time. Oh yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Hopefully it doesn't start downpouring on us. Would you like a tour of the van at least?
Yes.
Okay, so...
And we called her Luna, right?
Yes, this is Luna, the locational uplinking networking asset. And it's an old, as you can tell, it's an old NBC Connecticut van. But we, there's not much to see right now.
Oh my gosh, you weren't kidding.
When I said it's full.
We have no room to sit.
Yeah.
We can stand in front of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's stuff and things.
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah, this is, and I wish there was, it'd be like, oh, that's not too, but then you come over here and you're like, oh, the whole back is literally filled to the brim too.
So Tim, I've been chasing you around for months now trying to get this interview. So we are doing it while we can. Thank you for making time for us.
You're welcome. Sorry it took so long. As you know, I'm
on
everywhere.
the go. You're on the go. How is YouTuber life and being busy all the time?
It was, as I was mentioning to you a little bit before, honestly, it was a lot easier when I was just staying at home working, like during the pandemic. It was amazing. I could just sit there and crank out videos. But, a big part of my passion is actually seeing them launch and trying to, bring that to people as well. So that's kind of why we made this van, was an attempt to really try to up our production game. Because, if I'm going to be there, we might as well do absolutely everything we can to capture it and make it look good and share it with people so they can feel, because people can't come, not everyone can, come out to these things.
No.
So we're just trying to share it and make it as exciting and as fun as possible.
I ran a quick Twitter poll and only 20% of the people on my Twitter feed had ever seen it launch in person. So I think it is more rare than,
Yes.
I mean, I still haven't. Hopefully tonight. Hopefully tonight.
Yes, yes.
Are your eyes two different colors?
They are, yeah.
Okay, breaking news. I did not know that. That is so cool.
It's something that not that many people
No.
honestly have ever, I've been shooting for, years and years and years, and
Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and believe it
Have
or
you
not,
guys
like,
noticed
I didn't notice
not that many,
Okay.
even in my videos and stuff,
We're getting
very
the
few,
scoop.
very few people have
Is
ever
that
noticed.
called a
Actually,
walleye?
I don't know. It's heterochromia is the actual term. Some
Okay.
people call them like huskies it's very common to have different colored eyes. So some people say like husky eyes or something.
Wow.
But, yeah.
Okay, sorry to be random, but I mean that's really interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't actually get pointed out that often on YouTube, like I said. So
Well,
yeah.
we're here to make the interview different and not ask the same questions over and over like what often happens to Elon.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of Elon, I mean, so many of you, or so many viewers now know you and your channel based off those wonderful tours that you did. Tell me about like that experience and maybe some stuff that people don't know about that experience.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, so I interviewed him a handful of years ago at the Starbase event at the end of 2019, or the end of, and then I also, interviewed him right during DM2, him and Jim Bridenstine in the firing room at NASA, and I'm surprised that interview was crazy for me, because to me there's like the administrator of NASA, Elon Musk, and we're in the firing room, the same one where the Saturn V launch directors and everything were like, and Elon, if you wouldn't mind miking yourself up there too.
Sure.
That'd be great. Right before the first crewed flight for SpaceX. Like, it was that to me was like one of the biggest opportunities, and people weren't like as excited about that as when I walked through Starbase, and that's when people really seemed to appreciate the the interviews, and that stuff was all Elon, honestly. That's just him saying like, "Yep, come on over," type of thing, and I'm like, all right, can I bring our camera?
Oh, it was amazing what you were able to capture. And were you nervous at all, or you kind of knew him at that point?
Yeah, I mean, having interviewed him and run into him a handful of times, like you have some kind of. It's not just totally like first time or anything. The very first interview I ever had, that was my first time actually ever meeting him. So you can see my first interaction with him ever in that very first Starship interview, but. After that, you kind of get to the, I don't know, once you're around anybody, you kind of just get to be familiar with their quirks and their personality and like what, I don't know, it just normalizes a decent amount,
He's your friend.
At least acquaintance.
Yeah.
At least a good acquaintance, yeah. I honestly, being around him, off camera and stuff, he's actually really chill. He's really like, he's always working. So even when the camera's off, like, he's often just like answering texts and like, taking a phone call quick, and it's just go, and it's it's exhausting, and
wow.
Yeah.
But you're also always working, it seems, which is probably a lot. Are you still based in Iowa?
Yeah, I'm trying to be. My primary house and where I'm supposed to live is Iowa, but I'm back and forth between Iowa and Texas a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. So that's the main thing. Here a couple times a year, 2 to 3 times a year normally. In Florida, we're in Florida right now in case.
Yeah.
But so yeah, for the most part, I try to be in Iowa. I think last year I was in Iowa much less than 50% of the time. This year it's probably less than 50% of the time, but I don't know. I still pay taxes in Iowa, so I don't know. But yeah, and I want Iowa to be home. That's still like the goal.
That was my next question. Do you have any ambition to get closer to the rockets? Because I don't think there's much going on in Iowa.
No, I was very conveniently located about as far away from anything spaceflight related as possible. But I just love it there. That's where my friends and family are, and it's just I've got 10 gig internet. So as like a YouTuber, like how could you? And I pay like nothing for it. It's just chill. I can sit and work. I don't have distractions. I don't have to drive far to go to anywhere. It's just like everything's just there, and I just get to work. So I really like Iowa. But yeah, I'm not there often. Yeah.
So I think that you're probably a lot of people's favorite space tuber, or one of their favorites. You have over 1 million subscribers. Is it just crazy to you that this orange spacesuit has led to what your life is now? Like, just reflect on that a little bit.
Yeah, it hits me every now and then. Actually, for instance, the other day someone asked me if I'm on TikTok. I'm like, yeah. I'm on TikTok, and I checked it, and I was like, holy crap, I have like 30,000 subscribers on TikTok, and I said it out loud like that. I'm like, wow, that's a ton. Like, I was just shocked. Like, dude, you have over 1 million YouTube followers. And I was like, oh yeah, like that is quite a bit, isn't it? Sometimes I forget the perspective of that, and I forget that is that's something, I guess, and because it just sort of happens, if you just, it's all pretty linear, the more you put into it, it just kind of keeps going. So there's every now and then you just kind of get to take a step back and you're like, oh yeah, it is I forgot I was out of town when that gold the YouTube plaque thing came in, and so my parents like took delivery of it, or grabbed it or whatever, and they brought it over like, here, you had this. I still don't think I've opened it. It's just not, the numbers don't really matter. They just kind of all become arbitrary, and it's just more about still trying to make content that I enjoy, and hopefully that other people enjoy too, Yeah, before YouTube, I was doing photography professionally, and I had done that since about 2008, 2009, and it was 8 years, because I stopped the last time in 2016, I made the decision to pursue Everyday Astronaut, and at the time I didn't know what that was. I was trying to do some Twitch streaming. I was posting a lot on Instagram as an art project, and I made my first educational video on YouTube on February 27th, 2017. It was the very first video that I produced, for YouTube basically. And it was slow going, and I was actually really disappointed with the amount of work that I put into the video and the lack of, anything. I was like, what's the point of this? But the difference with YouTube compared to other platforms was it kind of sat there and brewed a little bit, and the YouTube algorithm was all of a sudden serving it up to people, and I was like, oh, I don't have to do all the work to bring an audience in to see this. YouTube will actually recommend this, and I watched it, go from 1,000 views or something to 70,000 views within like, you know, a pretty short period of time. I was like, what? You know, this is crazy. I just had never seen anything like that. So that was my sign of like, I could actually, you know, in theory, if I make good videos and if YouTube recommends them, maybe they'll do some of the work for me to get it out in front of eyeballs. And that's kind of where it all started.
And so now, you know, you make these deep dive videos. I mean, how long does a deep dive video take, really?
I'm an optimist, so I always say like, yeah, this will be a short, easy one. In my Discord and like my, you know, people that are friends of mine will just laugh every time I say it. I'm like, no, really, I think this will be like a 20-minute video. This is an easy topic. And then 2 months later, and 20 pages of script, you know, I'll emerge and be like, well, okay, so there's a bunch of rabbit holes, you know, and that's kind of the whole point of what I do is almost to help provide context of like, there's so many people that say like, you know, why don't they just do this and make things, you know, simple and easy? But it is rocket science, and there's a big reason. There's always these deep dive reasons on like why things are hard, why they're complicated, why they're expensive, why they are over budget and late and delayed. Is because this stuff is crazy and it's at the bleeding edge, and the science and the margins and everything. It's just absolutely crazy. And you know, I've had multiple videos take months and months and months, and one took almost 2 years to actually complete, which was my deep dive on Soviet rocket engine history. And a lot of that is because I had to hire people to, you know, read sources in Russian, you know, because a lot of the information just wasn't available in English.
Oh my gosh.
So that took a long time, because my idea was the Soviets really went from like kind of unengined and made a lot of them, you know, literally had like a family tree. And I started with the goal of like, I want to actually draw out a family tree. And it had just tons of question marks all over. Like, how did they get from here to here? And the goal was like literally to be able to trace all the way down. And frankly, we accomplished it. But it took 2 years.
Wow.
And it was an 1.5 hour long video. So it's like,
oh my God.
It's a crazy deep dive. It actually is one of my favorite videos. Some people hate when they like, you know, that was definitely a passion project. They didn't know it wasn't going to be like a huge video, but it was actually super fun, and I still love it. And yeah, that's definitely one of those that I look back at because I forget a lot of the details often, you know, that I had to like reference myself.
Well, yeah, that's a lot to remember. How many people are on your team now?
So for the most part, it's I'm the only like employee, I guess. Andrew Taylor is the mastermind behind a lot of the live stream production stuff. He does a lot of the co-editing. He now does a lot more and more of the After Effects stuff, any of the animations. I like doing that stuff, but he's a lot more efficient at it. And he's generally better at graphic design. My girlfriend Ellie does all of our merch, all of our like graphic design. She actually has learned how to switch and run the show. She ran our last live stream at Artemis. She normally but she normally like does all branding and marketing stuff and she makes me look cool. You know what I mean? Like, she's the reason that like our stuff looks really tight and professional. And so yeah, it's those two are the big ones. And then we've got a whole website crew, people that write articles, and that's I think 8 or 9 people that are, you know, contributing monthly, and that they get paid monthly to write articles and keep the website going, which we definitely don't capitalize on that very well. That's one of those things. I should probably like sell ads on it or something, because we actually have a lot of traffic on the website, but I like to keep it clean and simple and try to help it be a resource for people.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a full team of people just running that like almost independently. That's one of those things I'm like, this is important and I want it to be out there and I want it to be a resource, but I don't have time or the capacity to do it.
Right.
So we've got an awesome team of people, and that's run by Florian, he's in Austria. So we have people all over the world, you know, building that website as well. And then the other person that's probably Ryan Chalinsky from Cosmic Perspective, but we just kind of work together.
Yeah.
You know, they do a lot. We just do a lot of things, you know, in as a team. But then Ben Steinman is another big one that has helped design all the networking. He does aerial stuff for us when we need it, and he's just there's a handful of people. So
I asked Felix this because one of my subscribers asked me to ask, you know, for Team Space, do you feel like the Space Tubers are a cooperative community? Do you feel like we're, you know, what do you think about the emerging Space Tuber community, I guess? I
love it. I mean, for me, like, I rely on these people now to keep, you know, keep up with the news. When I first started doing YouTube, like, SpaceX had, I think in 2017, I'm going to totally flub this, but I think it was only like 6 or 8 launches or something. And like, so keeping up with space news was super easy. It was like, you know, it was exciting and you couldn't wait for the next launch. And now it's like, I completely lose track of it all. There's way too much going on. I don't intend to be a news source. I like more the long form stuff. So I do completely rely on all these other teams of people to keep up with this stuff, because I can't do it. I don't really have the desire to try to keep up with it. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
So I love, like, it's so cool to see all these different voices and different people producing their unique perspectives and their opinions. And it's funny because, like, I feel like I'm pretty friendly Team Space. Then you have like people like Angry Astronaut, who his whole thing is rants. And you have Felix doing daily stuff, or weekly stuff, and you have NSF doing daily stuff, and you have Lab Padre doing constant 24-hour live stream stuff. I mean, it's just amazing. Scott Manley's ability to just do off the cuff, like, sit down and just do these like incredibly like unscripted deep dives on a topic blows my mind. I am not nearly that smart. I'm not nearly that just capable of just spewing out information like that man is. So I admire him a lot. But yeah, it's just so cool to see. I wish, well, I don't wish, because it's happening now, but when I first started getting into spaceflight, there just wasn't any of that community. There wasn't any of that. There wasn't resources for these kinds of things. And I'm not saying that I started any of that. I think just the emergence of the new space era has done that, but I'm so happy to see it's picking up like that. It has become much more of a community.
Throw in some questions, guys.
Have you ever built a rocket?
Have I ever built a rocket?
By yourself?
Besides a model rocket, no. Like when I was a kid, I would build little model rockets, but
I mean, like high-power rocketry.
Nope. But
if you're in Texas and are looking for some launch sites, there's a few out there if you want to launch something.
Yeah.
Or friends of amateur rocketry in California.
Yes, I've been out there. So I went out there last year for Hot Nozzle Summer is what it was called back then, and my friend Joe Barnard goes out there quite a bit too with some of his rockets. I don't have time right now. I would love to someday.
You're a little busy.
I know. Someday I'll settle down.
What is your future aspiration?
Future aspiration.
Where do you want to get with YouTuber?
To be honest, I'm beyond content with what I'm able to be doing, and I just feel so fortunate to be able to throw, money at something ridiculous like an old news van, and be able to go and cover this stuff in person. Like, that's a dream come true. I feel like I'm already kind of living like the dream, honestly, of what I want to do. But my aspiration, believe it or not, is to be able to do less of this stuff, at least less of the. Right now, I'm having to manage and spending a lot of time just like planning and building and buying. Oh my God, like the amount of time we spend like trying to figure out research, like which converter we need for this and that is just ridiculous, and it's inefficient. So I've been spending the last like 3 or 4 months has been literally like full-time building a production van. And that's not what I want to be doing. That's not what my supporters and my fans want to see me be doing. So ideally, I really want to try to streamline and make the live streaming stuff just ready to go. And the idea is having it all set up in theory on wheels means we can roll up somewhere and set up and actually stream with relative ease. But my aspiration is actually just to get back to like being able to make videos more, that's what I love to do. And not be traveling as much, but Starship keeps me way too busy. Now throwing Artemis into the mix and Firefly into the mix, and who knows what else exciting thing is going to be in the future. But I want to be, my goal actually is to not get burnt out before humans land on the moon again. That's my goal. It's just to be able to be at a good place and be able to help share that new historic moment with people. Is like that's actually been a goal of mine for a long time. It's like when I first started, I was like, I want to be like able to cover this stuff at Kennedy Space Center and be able to stream it. Like I actually pulled up when I made a video about making this van, and I found one of my very first Twitch streams, and I'm literally in the Twitch stream saying like, hey, I'm raising money, and I had raised $56 to try to make a production trailer, because I'm like, I want to go out and cover rocket launches and stream them and stuff.
Oh my God.
And and this is kind of the version of that, I guess. It's a bit of a scope creep and a scaling issue, and it's gotten a bit out of hand, but it's here, and we're getting there.
Sometimes you need to appreciate how far you've come.
Yeah, for sure. It's been, and it's the dream career. I get to, be my own boss, but unfortunately, I think anyone that's, works for themselves, that's passion driven, you just end up working more that way, and you end up not having limits on when to stop and when to relax and when to take a vacation and stuff. So
I think you've answered it in live streams, because everyone wants to send you into space. So you don't want to go to Mars, right? They all want to send Tim to Mars. You keep saying
definitely
no Tim to Mars.
No Mars.
No Mars.
No Mars. I would, you know, this day and age, and this changed after seeing like DM2 and seeing Inspiration 4, like I will now, yeah, I would go to space now.
You would go to space. You go to
I would go to space. I would do Leo.
Would you do Dear Moon?
Is here.
That would be really hard. Like I would have to evaluate, like if given that option, I would.
Why?
You made a video for that, right?
Yeah, I made a video. You know, just sort of like casually thinking like obviously there's no shot, and frankly Dear Moon's been like radio silent, so I don't think anyone knows. At least I don't, and I would definitely have to like really strongly consider. You know,
What are you
do
considering?
I don't know, the safety, the
Yeah.
do I want that? You know, like do I, you know, the good thing is one of my concerns back in the day, and I'm seeing it now, is not as big of a deal, but I was actually nervous back in the day that that you would be like totally recognized, you know, all the time. If you were, you know, going back to the moon, I would be so nervous that you'd be, you know, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, where they couldn't walk or go anywhere, do anything. But I just don't think that's the reality of it today. There's so many people that have flown to space, even, you know, commercially, and Inspiration 4, you know, that still, you know, they're just normal people, and they don't get inundated by some space celebrityism, you know. So
Right.
I don't think that would be an issue, because I feel like these days people are like, oh yeah, people went to the moon, cool, you know, or like people went to space, who? Like, I feel like the biggest one for that was Axiom. Like, no one, like none of my family or anyone knew that there was a commercial crew going to, or not a commercial, but completely private crew going to the International Space Station. They just completely went up there with no fanfare, and they definitely don't have to live with those, like,
Yeah.
you know, it's just become normal, it's become routine, and that's actually quite exciting to me, you know, is the idea of this all becoming the next thing, you know. You don't think about flying, and no one gets famous for riding in an airplane anymore, and it's almost getting to the point now where people are no longer like, it's not a big deal to ride on a rocket, you know.
Yeah, would you go on a Blue Origin?
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat. Yeah. They make that look so routine, and they've had such a great record with that vehicle, and their rigorous approach to flying, you know, testing. They've had 12 virtually flawless test flights before they put humans on it. Like that was
Yeah.
a rigorous, almost like
Totally.
obnoxiously rigorous test campaign. So I feel really, really good about that system, and I feel like when they do develop an orbital crew vehicle, it'll likely go through the same ringer, you know.
So now that we've had another SLS scrub, do we think SLS or Starship first? I know.
Oh my God.
It's hard.
I still, frankly, don't kill me, SpaceX fans, me included. I still think SLS and Artemis will likely get to orbit first, just
Okay.
because I think Starship will tease us often with like feeling like it's right there, as it has for a year. Nick and Sweeney from NASA Spaceflight moved to Brownsville literally like the week of the stack last
Yeah.
like July or August or whenever that was, thinking that it's imminent and that it's within a month of launching. And those of us that have been watching this stuff long enough should be used to this by now. I feel like we always get the rug pulled out from us. We think like, hey, this is happening next week, get down there, run. And I've done that. I've literally flown out in panic, been setting up the van or setting up the studio, thinking like a big, huge static fire is gonna be in 2 days. And then I'm down there for a month and nothing happens, you know?
Oh no.
So and that's not any shade against SpaceX, it's
Yeah.
just the reality, and especially
Sure.
their approach to doing things is like a mix of send it and then like, well, crap, like now I've got to redo all, you know, some of this stuff. And so you just never know. It's just such a wild card. Whereas opposed to like SLS, I feel like is at least a little bit more predictable. It really seems to have the option or the possibility of flying by the end of October. So
Right.
I would place my bets with that. I would say November is probably. I would say that November is probably a little bit more likely. You know, November, December for Starship, in my opinion. And that's based off of nothing besides just gut feeling.
When you originally, you know, got that major interview with him before, like I guess the one that didn't do as good as the tour for whatever
Right,
reason.
yeah.
How did that come to be?
That was Twitter. That was me being like, hey, I'll be out at the press site, pop on over if you want to, you know, say hi during our live stream. Because we were literally going to be right there, and it was the pandemic. That was 2020, May 2020 was DM2. So there just wasn't a lot of press out there. There wasn't a lot of hoopla because of the numbers. And, you know, he actually was just like, sure. And then what that turned into was like 2 days before or a day before being like, hey, we're actually just going to have you interview while he's up in the firing room. And I'm like, Yeah, I will definitely prefer that, you know. And by the way, Jim Bridenstine, the NASA administrator, is gonna crash your party too. Like, so we had him like jumping in, and it was like, who knew that, like, you know, he'd get interview bombed by the administrator of NASA was a huge surprise. So that was a bit of a panic moment too, because I didn't have, you know, more than 2 mics.
Yeah.
So for that interview, I literally just plugged in earbuds to my phone and just recorded a memo on the phone. Luckily, like, honestly, just good old earbuds with that little microphone sound surprisingly great, and you can't really hardly tell over the, you know, $600 wireless packs. So, pro tip.
When did
if you ever
you
need it.
ditch wearing the suit?
2018 was the end of the suit era. So I only made it about 1.5 years of wearing the suit. For sure, I think I still produced some videos in 2018 that had the suit. By the end of 2018, I was done. What pushed it over the edge is I did a production with Facebook. So Facebook Watch production. That was like Facebook's attempt at being, you know, Netflix and having original programming. So we actually sold a show to Facebook, went around and did this big production. And that pushed not only like the character of Everyday Astronaut, like the idea of this goofy guy just out there, you know, running around, gallivanting around in a spacesuit, trying to figure out space, you know, pushed that character to the max. But it also took like the physical exhaustion of wearing the suit too much all day, because some of those filming days were literally 10, 12-hour days of it being in the suit.
Oh my gosh.
Literally, I hung it up, and I maybe wore it one other time after that. And I have not touched, I refuse. It, like, that pushed me way over the limit, you know, just.
You can't exactly dry clean it.
Exactly.
I was going to say, you probably don't miss wearing the suit.
Not at all. Honestly, and I feel like that was actually a pretty big tone change for the channel. Well, I came to this realization too around then of like feeling like I'm just over the suit and stuff. And I'd always see those comments like, why is this guy wearing a spacesuit or, you know, pajamas in his bedroom or whatever? Like, I realized there's a non-zero chance, like, no one has ever clicked on a video that I make now and been like, I'm not listening to this guy. He's not wearing a spacesuit. But the inverse of that is definitely true. I definitely had people being like, why would I listen to this guy? He's wearing a spacesuit. You know, so I was like, why would I possibly potentially ostracize anybody? I'd rather it be obviously, you know, very obvious and open and a fun and welcoming place. And it kind of helped set the tone to be a little bit more serious. I still want to have fun, and but I've kind of just focused on like just getting the information out there as efficiently as possible.
And that spacesuit almost killed you. Is that one of the most scary moments of your life?
I've done other dumb things in my life, so I can't say. I mean, I got electrocuted twice trying to build this van because I'm dumb. Yeah, not big shocks, but like grabbed onto the. It was only 30. It was a little tiny. There's a loose wire that just shows when the van is on, and like this is a little LED indicator. I just grabbed on, or an incandescent indicator. I just grabbed onto it, being like, "What? Why is this loose?" To plug it in, you know, grabbed onto what was actually just totally hot wire. You know, like an idiot. Yeah. So I mean, I do dumb stuff. I'm not. You know, I grew up like racing motorcycles and cars and stuff, so I've definitely had a lot closer calls with death. So nearly beginning to suffocate in a sealed helmet was just par for the course, I guess.
One of my Patreons says a few years ago someone suggested to him get a van to work out of. Now he is assembling a state-of-the-art mobile studio and a converted fan. What changed your mind on this?
Oh, I had a lot of suggestions from people saying I need to like do it right, you know, and like I kept wanting to be like, I liked kind of just streaming from a car and like having a lightweight setup. But at the end of the day, like when we're, especially Artemis rollout, the first SLS rollout in March, we just had so much stuff go wrong. We shipped in like, literally, I mean, what you see here is probably almost the amount of stuff that we shipped in was just an obscene amount of things. And you know, we were just scrambling to put it all together, and then we didn't have good connectivity. Our Starlink failed. We just didn't have any room for contingencies, really, even though we did kind of have some contingencies. And so we had a totally failed stream. So I'd flown, you know, myself and other team members out, you know, the rental cars, the Airbnb, all that stuff, like, it just got to the point where it was a total flop financially. And I just said at that point, we literally left. We were half making fun of seeing the vans, the microwave vans with a big pole like this, and being like, can you imagine like beaming, you know, back to setting up one of those vans this day and age of like live views and you know, having just fully in the cloud streaming. And then Andrew was like, well, it would actually be really nice if we could just put all of our gear in the rack in there. And I was like, and I think Ryan Chalinsky said something like, you know, imagine putting a camera on top of that pole. And I was like, and imagine being able to just wheel it, you know, wherever we want to be. And that's, and then it just came to like, you know, it is actually a reasonable option to just build a van, you know.
And I'm sure you don't regret it now?
I'd say I'm on the fence because it's been exhausting and it's been definitely like burnout fuel just to the team that it takes to run this. You know, like the idea of making money streaming is definitely out the window at this point because it takes like 6 people to do this. So feeding 6 people, paying 6 people, all that stuff, you know, it's just grown. It's just scope creep. It's just grown because it takes that much more to operate a show like this. And it's not about that. Like that's what, you know, the supporters are for, and that's what Patreon is for, is like helping to, you know, help me do the best I can on everything, obviously. But I'm not saying that I don't regret it. It's very overwhelming right now because there's still things that like, I look at this and I'm still like, well, there's another $20,000 or $30,000 we could put into this thing.
Wow.
Like just to get it going. I mean, right here, this cable, wait, this is in the box. Somewhere there's a giant box with what's called a NiCoil cable, and it's a cable that we're feeding up the pole. Just to have that was $2,000.
Oh my gosh.
And like, it's just the amount of things like, you know, fiber optic cables for the van, because we were able to plug into fiber. We spent $800 on fiber, and that wasn't long enough, so we had to rent a 1,000-foot fiber spool. You know, and like renting a generator, all these things. Just the scope creep of running a van like this is not fun. So right now I'm in between regretting it and also thinking like it will be awesome for the long run, for the, you know, the long run.
In my Patreon says Tim's content has shifted from shorter videos and lots of live streams to more long form deep dives. How has this affected Everyday Astronaut as a business? Are you happy with this approach?
That's what I love doing the most, for sure. It's like, because for me, I always want to be trying to satisfy my curiosity. If I have something that I don't know the answer to, that's like just ripe for a video. Because obviously I'm far from an expert, but I've been around the block enough to know a decent amount of things and see some holes in, you know, overall holes in the knowledge for sure, where I'm like, that would be a really good video. And just seeing when people have questions over and over, like, I want to be able to answer that fully, you know, and to the deepest. And for me, it's YouTube. People can skip around, they can see chapters, they can decide how they can speed it up, they can play my stuff at 2x, you know, if they want. So there's no negative consequences to just following the flow of the video and making as long of a video as it takes to describe the topic at hand. And with, you know, more traditional sources, network news and things like that, you had to cut it up into a very, you know, real short. And so you're literally limited on like a, you know, 24-minute program to fit it in a 30-minute thing, because you have to have ads. And I don't have any of those. There's no constraints. So literally I just get to have the question burning, have the start, and then see where the storyline takes you. And I've just learned more and more that it's actually more fun and more engaging, and people seem to actually learn more when I walk them through the whole thing. When I don't just like, the idea is I want someone to walk out of the video or leave the video going like, that actually answered all my questions. So the fun thing is, like, I actually have a lot of people reading the scripts. You know, a lot of people are able to read the scripts like while I'm working on them. And then a lot of people review the video when we shoot it. And lots of times that's another opportunity to edit. I will reshoot tons of stuff. The Soviet rocket engine video, I reshot, like, that took, I think there's 8 or 10 hours of 6K footage of me recording, because I kept reshooting big swaths, because people would come to me and be like, hey, you know, I showed this to my blah, blah, blah. He had this feedback, and then would send me a paper or something. So just reshoot it and keep adding to it. And that's been amazing, is giving myself that grace, giving myself that room and that no deadlines. Because if I was trying to do this every week, it'd lead to a compromise in the video's integrity and all of that stuff. So I'm just trying to make it so it doesn't matter how long it is. You just make it right. Try to keep it as short as possible, but go all the way, go as deep as I physically can to help satisfy that knowledge that everyone's watching my videos for.
Someone, I don't know if you know an answer to this. Someone says, how far could the Dragon capsule go if they launched it on a Falcon Heavy? Could they expend the core stage to use it to achieve orbit?
Oh yeah. I mean, they can easily get, obviously, a Falcon Heavy expended. Could likely get, I would have to look up what the number is on the TLI mass for Falcon Heavy, but expended, I think it can physically launch a Dragon to the moon. Dragon doesn't have enough delta V to get into orbit around the moon, but they could do a lunar flyby with Falcon Heavy. Don't plan on it though, because Falcon Heavy is not rated for human spaceflight, and Dragon capsule is also not currently rated or necessarily designed for coming back from lunar velocities. But Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Falcon Heavy could throw a Dragon capsule very far. Yeah.
What do you do outside of your channel when you're not, I don't know, driving across the country? When you actually have free time? When
I have free time, well, lately it's been like I've been building a deck at home and like working on my house.
Okay.
I've been redoing a like mid-century house and just kind of working on some stuff. Obviously, I hired most of it because I don't have time to do it, but I'm very passionate. I actually love like architecture and interior design and stuff. So yeah, like when I'm not watching or catching up on space, but I'm watching home like improvement videos and stuff. I love that stuff. Other than that, I like to play music when I have free time. I play drums almost every day still when I'm home. Wow. Yeah, just kind of hang out with friends and family, you know? Yeah.
What was Tim like in high school?
A dork, like a band nerd, band geek, marching band. I played in hardcore bands, and after high school I did some touring with some, you know, local bands and stuff, and was on the road quite a bit then. So I'm pretty used to the road life. It feels fun and close to home. But yeah, I was just a ball of energy, extremely hyperactive, very into cars and motorcycles and music. Yeah.
When did your love of rockets spark?
When I bought the spacesuit, I bought mostly as a joke because I was starting to get into spaceflight, and I was watching, I think, you know, honestly, like the movie Gravity, even though it was like factually inaccurate, and I kind of laughed at it knowing it wasn't that accurate. But that movie and no, The Martian I had already, somewhere around then, actually no, watching the space shuttle take off, the SES-135 in 2011, watching that take off, literally, like, I watched the live stream of that going like, man, that sucks, like, now what? And I kind of got nostalgic and was like, I feel like I missed out, you know, because I liked that stuff as a kid a little bit, but not as much as cars and motorcycles and airplanes and jets and music, you know, like those were like my passions as a kid. And then, you know, but growing up, like I came out here when I was 5 years old, I actually happened to catch, I've seen a space shuttle launch. We're here on vacation with my family, caught the launch of Hubble, just realized that like a year ago that I saw a space shuttle when I was about 5 years old. My dad took me out in the parking lot. We watched the space shuttle go up. It was either here in Orlando or in Cocoa Beach. I don't remember where we were at the time, but I do remember that. So I technically did see a space shuttle launch, and it happened to be Hubble. And you know, I liked that stuff, but it was just eclipsed by other things. And then when I bought the spacesuit and all that stuff, I was just starting to have more and more of a craving of spaceflight. But the spacesuit really, I started doing a lot of research on like fun space facts to hide in the images, because it used to be an art project. So I'd like do all this research to try to hide little Easter eggs, and that really got me into it. And then I came out here in 2014 to see CRS-3 was the first launch I ever was shooting with Spaceflight Now at the time, and that got me so hooked. I walked, you know, went through the Kennedy Space Center, the visitor complex, just loved it, just fell in love, and seeing the history and you know, getting up close and personal with the Falcon 9, the first one that had landing legs, I was just so hooked. And that's when it just went all in.
What is your advice to aspiring YouTubers?
Oh man.
Especially since it sounds like you kind of became everyday astronaut a little bit by accident.
Yeah. The advice first off would be start. Like people all the time, how do I start a YouTube channel? The answer is start. Everyone thinks they have to have this big master plan and have to have a perfect video first. It's like no one's going to see your first video.
I say the same thing.
Yes,
literally, word for word.
No one will see the first one. So get your kinks out of the way in the first one.
Yeah.
People try to make these master plans and like these like masterpieces for their first YouTube videos. It's like, no, your first ones are gonna suck. No offense. Like watch my first videos. They're terrible. And like it took me a long time to find the voice and the rhythm. So like the biggest thing you can do is get started, obviously. But then the next thing to do is just follow, listen to feedback, but don't let it be like negative. But there, you know, in the negative, like, and all that negative trolling and stuff, there is normally a nugget of truth.
Yes.
And I've had to learn how to like filter that and help direct that into a positive way. You know, so when I see someone saying, you Dumbo, you should be building a van instead of, you know, streaming from a Tesla, like, they're right. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that like you need to listen to all feedback like that, but at the same time, you know, there's definitely truth to certain little bits, and it's important to listen to some of that feedback, but try not to let it affect your day-to-day, because
do you
sometimes
get trolls?
Oh yeah, it's the internet. What do you like? Of course, yeah. There's trolls constantly, and I've learned finally at this point, like I actually love it. I don't love it. I don't love it, but like
you make the most of it.
You make the most of it, and you actually end up like laughing at them, you know, for like trying so hard to like you know, take you down a notch or something, and it ends up being pretty funny. Mike's had like a...
Was that lightning?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Good old Florida.
So I'll just...
A fairly unorthodox interview, I feel like, because
no, it's fine. Hey, it's all right. Beggars can't be choosers. It's still rolling and you see both of us? Anything else you want to say?
Let's party.
And I also want to point out that right before this interview with Tim, I was still at Felix's house. Felix was super understanding of me needing to go quite quickly, although our interview was done. I had been planning this interview with Tim for months, and so thank you to Felix once again. What about it? Is a great guy, because he had no issue with this. He said, go, go, go. I understand. So yeah, the space tube community is awesome.